Welcome to Tagged Beyond the Award, the podcast that celebrates innovation, excellence, and leadership. Each episode dives into inspiring stories behind the nominees and winners of the TAG Awards, uncovering the breakthroughs, challenges, and triumphs that define their journey. Whether it's cutting-edge technology, transformative products, or visionary leadership, we're here to explore what it means to stand out and shape the future of your industry. Let's go beyond the award and into the heart of innovation. Here's your host, Justin Starbird.
Welcome back to Tagged Beyond the Award. My name is Justin Starbird, and today I'm excited. I get to bring on the CEO and co-founder of Neocis and the YOMI S Dental Robot, Alon Mozes. Alon, great to have you here today. This is so exciting.
Thank you, Justin. It's really a pleasure to be here.
First and foremost, congratulations on all of your success so far on the TAG Award win. We couldn't be more happy to have you as part of our class of 2026. So congratulations.
Thank you. It's really a great honor. Really appreciate the recognition from TAG.
TAG stands for Technology, Achievement, and Growth. And I feel like you guys, did such a good job exemplifying each of those elements. But for listeners that aren't as familiar with your company or even the robot, give us a little bit of an overview of the technology and what are the specific challenges that you solve for?
Yeah, so the company's called Neocis, and we develop a robotic platform called YOMI. It's a robotic-assisted surgical platform, so it guides dental surgeons in drilling dental implants. So typically, if a patient is missing some teeth, potentially missing an entire arch of teeth, you want to drill holes into the bone to place an implant. It's like a little screw that acts as a new foundation for a prosthetic tooth. So it's obviously important for cosmetics, but it's also important just for restoring function. You want to be able to chew. It's important, especially as the elderly population, you get older, you want to be able to get the same kind of nutrition. And it becomes really challenging if you've got dentures or other kind of suboptimal solutions. And so surgeons will do this surgery as kind of the standard of care these days. The challenge is you're drilling holes into somebody's bone. It's always a risk. You've got nerves, you've got sinuses. And so they use our technology to plan everything in software. So there is a CT scan effectively in dental, which is a low dose radiation. It's called cone beam CT. And they have those CT scanners to start the planning process. You get a nice 3D image. So we develop all the software to be able to interpret that image, provide a model based on that image, analyze the nerve, the sinus, the teeth roots to really help them get the right plan that they want for where they want that surgery to occur. And then we've also got a robotics component. So it's a robot arm that holds the drill and works with them, providing what we call haptics, like physical guidance, so that they can drill. They still need their hands on the drill, but the drill will only go where they've planned it in the software. So they get the perfect result every time. It's kind of like lane assist. They can't make a mistake.
Right.
So it gets them the right position, the right angle, stops at the right depth so they won't hit a nerve or sinus. And in the end, it becomes much easier to then restore those teeth. So you get the prosthetics in place. Now everything can happen same day in a minimally invasive approach. So it's great for the patient. It's great for the dental practice. They get a lot more efficiency. Technology really helps kind of all around.
Wow. What is the feedback from the dentists that are using this, and how do they implement it in their practice?
So they love it. It's really interesting hearing the full spectrum of the feedback. We've got some doctors who are obviously a little less experienced and trying to build up their practice. It can be a great tool as a confidence builder in being able to expand the procedures that you do. So maybe you didn't do that many full arches, they get a little more complicated. But we've also got doctors on the other end of the spectrum who are very experienced, who think, they're kind of at peak with their natural freehand kind of human skills,
Right.
but they understand that incorporating a robot now can open up really new opportunities to do more minimally invasive surgeries, flapless approaches where you're not making a big incision and opening up the gums to be able to see completely all the bone, which normally you'd want to do if you're really freehanding it because you want to know where you're going. But with the robot, you don't have to do that so much. And now that's a big win for the patient. It also makes their surgeries a lot faster. So we've got experienced doctors who would have done a lot of these complex full arch procedures, can take them an hour or two for an arch, can now do it in 30 minutes. And they do dual upper and lower arches. Could be an all day procedure for some of them if they're freehanding it. Now they can do it in an hour. So that efficiency, even among the experts, can really help. And the other fun side of it is, we always hear the experts who have associates. They have, junior partners that are doing dentistry that may be a little more fresh out of school. And so the expert in the practice will be like, oh, my hands are great, but I need it for my two junior associates to really help them ramp up faster.
Yeah.
And we've got a few cases where they'll buy a robot intending for the junior associates to use it the most of the time, and they end up producing such great work that the senior associate in the practice is the one who ends up saying, okay, I need another robot. And so we have multiple robots with a lot of practices because they realize, okay, everybody should be using this for every case.
I don't know if us talking about it is just making everything in my mouth like much more amplified, or I'm like,
Start feeling some
uh,
sensitivity
yeah,
in
yeah. I'm not one for being concerned about going to the dentist. But is this something that, and forgive my ignorance, is this something that doctors disclose to the patients and say, "Hey, we're going to use this tool, and actually, it's going to be, make your, recovery a lot easier and better." How do they communicate that with the patient?
Yeah, that's a critical part of adopting technology, just generally in dental or in medical, especially with robotics. I think there is now kind of a common understanding among even the lay patients that robotics will provide a better result. Right or wrong, they kind of just have this assumption that robotics are accurate, high precision, kind of state-of-the-art technology. That helps when you're a dentist, especially private practice dentist, and you're trying effectively to sell the case to the patient. You want to convince the patient you should get an implant. These dentures are terrible. You don't want me to make a bridge, which means you're filing down healthy teeth on either end of the gap to
Yeah.
act as a supporting structure for the bridge. That's just damaging healthy anatomy. We don't want to do that, and it's not integrating into your bone in a healthy way, so you're still going to have problems over time. But these procedures can be perceived as painful or as more expensive. So now with the robot, and we make this part of our training process, is not only teaching them how to use the technology, but how to speak about it to their patients. You can tell your patients, I have the latest and greatest technology. It's going to help me do a minimally invasive approach, which has shown to be less pain, faster healing, less chance of infection, and you can walk out with teeth in the same day. And so this is now a permanent, lifelong solution, as opposed to, okay, if I get you a bridge or a denture, you're going to be back here in a couple of years. I'm going to have to fix it. The bone's just going to get worse over time. Whereas with implants and this procedure, it's going to integrate in the bone. Your bone's going to stay healthier for a lot longer. So speaking to the patient about it is really critical. And it's part of how these dental practices really grow their business. They need to differentiate against the dental practice down the street. Oftentimes they use technology to really set themselves apart. And it instills confidence in the patients. As a patient myself, when I go to a practice, if I see a lot of paperwork and hard copy and folders kind of messed around the office, and they've got a dusty x-ray machine from 30 years ago, I don't care how experienced the dentist is, it gives me a little bit of pause that they're not up to date. So I think it's important for patients to see that the practices really care about staying current.
Yeah. Well, and they're concerned about their well-being, right? I mean, all of those updates are to improve the patient experience, and especially, where it's one of the medical areas where people shy away from, because they are concerned about those things. So I would imagine, yeah, absolutely, it's a differentiator.
Yeah, it's, as a patient, you want to know you've got a good doctor, but you also want to know they're on top of the latest because there's better ways to do it. Like everyone kind of assumes implants might be painful, root canals might be painful, but they have more and more technology to make that stuff a lot more palatable and the experience in the dental office. And I come from dental. My dad was an endodontist for many years, but I still I don't love the idea of going to the dental office. But the dentists I go to now have technology that just makes the experience a lot easier and better. And it's not something I would have worried about the way I would have 20 years ago.
All right, one more question about the experience, and then I want to
Yeah.
jump into a couple of other things. But this was not scripted. This was not part of my initial little list of questions. I'm just personally curious about it. What happens when you get it? So I would imagine the argument against this from, let's say, quote, old school dentists is that they freehand because if they get in there and see something that wasn't necessarily visible on the X-ray or in their scan, then this gives them the chance to, address it and deal with it because they have the experience and they've seen this before and using the guidance, they're not, I don't know, their argument could be that they're not seeing as much. What happens when there is a issue that comes up or a discovery that happens while the surgery is happening? Is there a way to pull back and reconfigure, or is that when the dentist goes in?
Yeah, so that's one of the great parts of this technology and being truly digital surgery. It happens all the time that dentists will go in with a plan. They think they know what they're getting into with the cone beam CT scan, the preoperative imaging, and then they find something is not as they planned. So oftentimes they're doing an extraction, for example. They're pulling out a tooth that has gone bad or cracked and is no longer salvageable. And the way the extraction goes, the bone breaks in a way that they didn't expect. Now their plan has to change. So what's interesting is prior to this robotics opportunity, they would either be freehanding it, which has all the risks of freehand, or they would be making like a plastic surgical guide. It's basically like a drilling stent, has to be made custom per patient. Looks kind of like a retainer with little drill sleeves in it. So you've made this thing in advance, you seat it on the patient, and then turns out you find something in the middle of the case is not exactly what you wanted. That plastic guide, you're toast. Like either you've got to go with this plan that is now not ideal, or you throw it out and you're going back to freehand. The nice thing about robotics is because it's digital, you just go into the software in the middle of the case and you change the plan. You say, hey, the bone broke over here in a way I didn't expect it was going to, or there's a little abscess here that I didn't quite read on the CT. I'm going to take my implant plan and I'm going to just, with a click of a mouse, shift that trajectory over by a millimeter this way or change the angulation this way so I can capture more of the good bone that's left, and really adapt to those intraoperative surprises. And that's where the robot really shines. So you're enabled to make those changes on the fly. And then the robot in real time is going to give you the guidance to that new location. So it still works with the doctor hand in hand. The robot holds the drill, the doctor holds the drill, and it's kind of guided by the robot. But now they're guided to a completely updated new plan that they can change based on whatever comes up in the middle of the surgery. So that's what you get with truly digital surgery in a way that didn't exist before robotics.
Yeah, that's wild. I'm just, so above my pay grade in terms of, what it's capable of. So testament to why it won the TAG Award this year. So with that, let's take a step back for a minute because you also are the co-founder of the company and you have, this legacy in your family in the dental space. When did it come up where you realized that you needed to solve for this and how did that take us back to the beginning?
Sure. So my background was predominantly in software engineering. So I was a software developer for many years. Started my career actually in entertainment and special effects. So I was doing real-time augmented reality for sports broadcasts, the yellow line in NFL football games, baseball pitch tracking. Um, the math and the technology that goes into that kind of augmented reality was really similar. The way the broadcast cameras have to track a football field is almost the same the way a robot has to track a patient. So naturally, I kind of fell into robotic surgery at a company doing orthopedic robotics. That company called Mako Surgical, I was there from the beginning in 2005 through 2010. So they had gone public, they had a lot of growth, a lot of success. But at the same time, as companies get bigger, innovation tends to slow down. So a couple of the engineers across the spectrum, there's mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, software like myself, and it takes a diverse group of engineers to build this kind of technology. But we all basically looked at each other and said, hey, we can do this in a different medical market. And we just wanted to explore what other medical markets might be interesting. At that point, orthopedics had become crowded. Um, because of the connection to dental in my family, my father being an endodontist for 40 years, we started looking in the dental space. Interestingly, I had no intent throughout my career of ever stepping into dental. It just happened to be that we knew robotic surgery as a technology really well. We had these connections to the dental space, and we started looking, and we found that dental implants were a really large, quickly growing market, and the clinical procedure was a natural fit for the style of robotics that we knew how to build. It was very similar to orthopedics. You're drilling into bone, you're tracking rigid bodies, and you have kind of millimeter level precision that you've got to hit. But if you can do that, you can really add a lot of value, both clinically to the patient and then also in terms of efficiency to the practicing doctors. So we kind of discovered dentistry and its application with robotics that way and then continue to explore.
And then fast forward 16 years and bang, you just get
Yeah, overnight success 20 years later. Yeah.
right. So I mean, when you got started and you started, you created these introductions and said, "Hey, we're gonna go ahead and solve for this." What was the initial reaction from doctors and clinicians that were going to be using the robot?
Uh, Some got it and understood it and said, "Oh, this will be great." And many, the initial reaction is, "Everything is great the way it is. I don't need to change. I don't want to change," which is exactly what we saw with Mako Surgical and Orthopedics. I think it's exactly what Intuitive Surgical saw with the Da Vinci robot. I think any kind of not just robotics, but novel technology, especially novel medical technology, it tends to be a slower adopting kind of market, until it's not. And then the switch flips and everyone's like, oh, this is standard of care. We really need to be doing this. What we used to do is really barbaric. And so I think we're finally getting to that point in the curve, thankfully, where they realize things really could be a lot better with technology.
That those first couple of iterations, though, and the robots that went out, of course, there had to have been challenges and some misses in terms of what the expectation was. How did the team, come back from that and really, overcome those barriers?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's persistence is a big part of it, and understanding where your expectations should be, especially with robotics. It takes a lot to get these robotic systems to be easy to use, to not add a lot of time during the procedure. So we've solved all of those things to where today we're great, but in the early going, we were pretty strategic about picking the customers that were going to get the first robots. We would, for the most part, sell exclusively to the more experienced doctors, the oral surgeons, periodontists, who placed a lot of implants freehand, who maybe didn't really need the robot. They could be benefited by it, but if the robot went down and something went wrong, they could push the robot aside and finish the case. And so for the early years, we really needed to be able to have that kind of patient and capable customer. We had technical challenges in terms of, say, the tracking arm was a little on the heavy side. So when you attach that to the patient, you kind of see their head tilt. It would weigh them down. It'd be uncomfortable. So the device, even from day one with FDA clearance, it's got to work. It's got to be safe and effective. But there definitely was still a lot of room for improvement. So making the tracking arm lighter and really, not noticeable at all, basically invisible to the patient. Making the link where we attach to the teeth, that at one point was placed with acrylic because you want it on really hard and tight. And you don't want that thing shifting during the procedure. But at the end of the procedure, now you've got this link attached with acrylic. You've got to drill it off, and that was a real pain. So we added time to the procedure in a way that was, not pleasant for some of these practices. Um, but over the years, you solve those challenges little by little, as fast as you can, to now the tracking arm is light, the link goes on in 30 seconds with standard material, painless to the patient, no time added to the procedure, comes off at the end of the procedure. It's just using the same impression material that they're used to using every day in their practice. So solving all of those challenges, making the software more and more automated, can automatically segment the nerve, the sinus, help them plan the implant so it goes really quickly on the planning side. All of those challenges, once you overcome them, leads you to a technology that can really be scaled and adopted in every practice. But to your point, it takes time to cycle through and go through those iterations to make those changes.
Yeah, and that was something I would, my mind goes to, those doctors and clinicians that are getting started with it. Sometimes it's intimidating. The fear, we live in a society where, generally speaking, there's just a lot of lawsuits, right, in and around care, and I would imagine that also made it challenging. Nobody wants to get sued for stuff, right? Especially if it doesn't go perfect. So, it's really interesting to hear how you were able to take that feedback and apply it in a way that is so beneficial for everybody. Because at the end of the day, even the patient benefits from this because their recovery time is less. What they go through for procedure is a shorter amount of time. So, was how hard was it to listen to that feedback and I don't want to say brush your ego aside, but like, put aside all the work that went into solving for this problem before, and now it's going to be different.
Yeah, no, I think that's a critical part of it, and I honestly think that's where we excelled. And coming from the background, we were in robotics and orthopedics before that. And I think it's maybe a typical engineering mentality, and having the background in engineering was really helpful for us. There's no egos. We're always about solving the problem. And to know what the problem is, you've got to really know your customer and the practice and the procedure really well. So even the days of Mako, I was a software developer, but I was right there side by side in all the big first cases with those doctors, making sure I understood the challenges they had. And like I said, no egos. You see the problem, you go and you fix it. We saw doctors doing stuff with duct tape in the middle of an orthopedics case. They're like, it doesn't have to be that way. And the doctors don't know the technology that's available. They just know they got a problem, they got to solve it, and they're solving it the best way they can. So if you can have that good relationship with your doctors, you really start to learn what the problems are. And if you know the technology well, you can build better solutions for them. And so our customers over the years, especially the early ones, they know us as being very attentive to the customer complaints, the opportunities to make the device better, the complaints from the patients, whatever we can do to make it better. We've obviously put in tons of effort, and you can see in the evolution of the product. So that, from the end of 2016, when we got our first FDA clearance and placed our first units in 2017, to 2020, 2021, huge strides in making the technology easier to use, faster, a lot more seamless in their practice and easier for the patient. And still to this day, constantly making it better to the point where now we just launched our YOMI S, the newest model, which, we got the TAG award for too, is, great technology that is built on years of listening to that feedback and eventually saying, okay, there's only so much we can retrofit onto the existing model. At some point, you got to do a ground up redesign. And so we've been able to do that in this latest generation. So it's really all about listening to the customer and making the product better and better. And it never stops.
Yeah, that's the thing. It never stops, right? I mean, that's the piece that's so interesting because uh, you always want to have the patient care at the forefront of what you're doing. So I love that you discussed that. So the medical device category of the TAG Award that you won was some robotic and procedural innovation. And our judges, shared a lot of great feedback. But one of the things that stood out was how it combines the precision and efficiency as well as usability in a way that feels practical for the clinicians actually using it. How important was it for you to build this new system to enhance workflow, especially with implementing AI and the different elements that make the response times quicker or identification of abnormalities easier without disrupting their workflow?
I mean, that's everything, right? And that's a key to scaling adoption is making it seem like it's not going to disrupt their workflow. It's not going to add time. One of the challenges with our original model of Yomi, which still works today, is doing surgeries all day long, every day across the country, is it requires another person in the room to help. There's a separate laptop, they're entering commands, so they got to have a dental assistant operating that unit. and that adds to their workflow. It's a burden that they wouldn't otherwise have. It's worth it, the trade-off for the benefits the robot brings, but we knew if there's a way to do a redesign to make the robot easier to use and all operated by what we call single pilot, meaning one person can really operate the whole thing, that would be game changing. So we get rid of that need for an extra person in the room. And that's what YOMI S does, really leveraging a lot of AI in terms of the software workflow, understanding the intent of the doctor as they're manipulating the drill. We have what we call more intelligent gestures. So as they grab it in a certain way, it knows they want to go from pause mode to free mode. And if they get close to the surgical site, it knows it should be helping them adjust their angle without needing them to explicitly click a button or give a command. And when they do need to give commands, now we have touch screen. So the doctor themselves can just reach out and touch the screen very easily. We have voice recognition. So just like you were talking to Alexa or Siri a moment ago, you can talk to Yomi. You say Yomi, tooth 10, and it'll take them right to tooth number 10. And then it also has speech synthesis. So instead of just beeps and clicks like most robots have, it's actually communicating verbally back to the doctor. As they're drilling, Yomi will say, "You're 2 millimeters deep, you're 6 millimeters deep." And so that information helps them really operate the system solo instead of needing another person to read the screen if they can't really read the screen, if they want to look in the patient's mouth and give the commands or receive the commands. All of that now is done just between the doctor and the robot.
That is wild. I mean, I knew this because I watched the videos, I read the nominations, the judges and I, we discussed all these things, but to hear all that goes into it and how that is completely disrupting, the dental office, I think, firsthand is incredible. I mean, Alan, this is awesome.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun. I gotta say, this last release with Yomi S was a real blast.
I mean, this has created a whole new category of robotics, really, and it's changing the expectations of, what's available for both the doctors as well as the patients. You know, are people asking about this now? Like, how do you, meet the demand? Is a situation where you're trying to just meet the demand of the dental offices and put them in, or is it still something where you're doing a lot of educating so that they are, bringing this in as a new option?
Yeah, it's a bit of both, right? So it's a new product launch, so all the typical manufacturing headaches that you'd expect to be there with a new product launch. So and there's a ton of interest. So we're getting through a bit of a backlog on orders, but it's not too excessive. So we're getting more and more systems out the door. So ramping up manufacturing, product development has been really successful the first half of this year. And that said, there's still lots of education. People have to understand what robotics really can deliver for dental. There's confusion with those plastic surgical guides or navigation systems that are like kind of like GPS, like you have to look at the screen and it kind of shows you where you're going, but there's no physical guidance, there's no robotics really integrated into it. So we have to educate the market really, because you're talking about 200,000 dentists. So we've got a great hold in the segment around some of the specialists like oral surgeons and periodontists, or in the very high volume general practice dentists, which can be anywhere from 100, 150 implants a year and up. But there's a broader audience in the dental space. You're talking 200,000 dentists across the country. We have not educated everybody, not by a long shot. So I think there's a lot of, and education in dentistry is particularly important. They really need to understand what this really does, how it helps them perform implant surgery better, how it can help them expand their practice. So that's all requires a ton of education. And every dental company is just constantly developing education. The nice thing for us is there's nothing more exciting than robotics in dentistry. We have the hottest topic, so filling seats for educational courses, CE courses. That's been an easy thing for us to do.
Sure. All right. So what was it like for the team to be recognized? So what has that done internally for you and the company and to see all this hard work and now this new generation being recognized as, truly innovative?
It's huge, right? I mean, this is not something that just takes a couple of weeks of effort. This is 3+ years of redesigning and iterating and going through all the testing and the headaches. That's a lot of heads down, late nights, long weekends, where it's a grind. And now to finally see the product launch and to see the reactions, to receive the awards, that's really where all those years of effort was really worth it. You really changed something. We were already the leader, the disruptor, bringing robotics to dentistry, first and only FDA cleared robotic system still to date in dental surgery. But now we've kind of leapfrogged ourselves. Like I think with YOMI S, to really see how game changing it is. It's not just dentistry. I think knowing, my co-founders and I, we come from robotics in surgery for many years. We know the landscape really well. There are now hundreds of robotic surgery systems trying to attack various medical procedures. Um, we think this is game changing in robotics in general. The way we've applied AI and the usability to something where it can really be an expanded platform and it's easy to use and easy to scale. I think that's very rarely been seen in robotic surgery broadly. So I think the team is very proud of that, and the recognition really kind of reaffirms we've done something special here.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with that statement. It's really neat to see the journey you've been on and the trajectory that you're, projecting. And I'm almost remiss or reluctant, I would say, to ask this next question because I feel like, there's a moment where you should also revel in the success and like, the accolades and say, man, this has been a good job. But I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say, what's next? What's on the horizon? What are you looking forward to, Alan?
Always. Yeah, no, if anything, I think that's probably the one thing I need to work on the most is we don't stop and revel. We're always looking at what's next.
I just
Um,
think of the guys like on the at the press conference after a big game, they win the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals or the World Series or something, and then they're like, "All right, what's next?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. I'm just like having a good."
yeah, yeah, we did our high fives. We didn't get the chance. You didn't all go to Disney World or whatever it is after the Super Bowl, but we took a victory lap, but it was very quickly. I think what's particularly interesting, especially with Yomi S, is the opportunity that it brings, right? It's not an endpoint, it's a beginning. It's a platform that we can now expand into lots of different procedures. It's a smaller cart, meaning it's a smaller system you can fit in more environments, whether it's a general practice dentist office who's got a lot more stuff in smaller spaces, or if it's in a hospital environment, you have a lot of other equipment around. Now it's going to be easier to fit. It's also got a longer arm, so you can position it in different places around, whether it's a dental chair or an operating room table. Um, that expansive opportunity points us to other dental procedures. So obviously, being in the dental industry, you want to look there first. There are procedures on the oral surgery side of it where they're doing what they call orthognathic surgery, BSSOs and LaForce, meaning cutting the mandible, cutting the maxilla, resetting it with plates and screws for these more severe procedures where they really could use a lot of help and guidance. Um, the other end of the spectrum on the general practice dentist side of it is the kind of drill and fill. Every day they're doing crowns. They're taking a tooth. The tooth hasn't completely failed. You don't want to pull it out and put in an implant. You really want to resurface the tooth and put a crown on top, a prosthetic cap. And it's just begging for automation. What they do today, they have guidelines how the margins should be, how the angle and the draw should be, and these are very precise and really hard to hit by freehand drilling.
Yeah.
So, we're doing lots of proof of concept work, prototyping work to see where we can really get to and how fast we can get there. And of course, ultimately down the road, these kinds of systems are already in the medical field, but not applied in areas of neurosurgery, ENT surgery in a way that they could be. Right now, the stuff that's in those markets, it's very invasive, very cumbersome, and our expertise is in building something that's easy to use and easy to integrate. And now we've got the proof in this unit with YOMI S that it could be applied potentially to the medical field and make a lot of those really severe procedures a lot better. So it's a lot of stuff on our plate. Just because we finished now building YOMI S, there's so much expansion opportunity. It's just setting up the roadmap right so we get the right order of operations and building it out and making sure that, our number one focus the end of the day, we're still dental implant surgery focused and want to make sure that those customers are 100% happy and we're delivering on the promise that where we are today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so it sounds like we have more nominations for next year to come in.
Yeah, look forward to that.
No kidding. Well, it's really exciting to hear about, I just appreciate the journey that you shared and how you're right. 20 years later, it's an overnight success, and it's like, every day you're in the labs, you're working, you're putting it together, you're fighting the uphill battle to overcome whatever the challenges are, and even perception. I think it's a critical mass right now where there is a huge opportunity for this, and there isn't anybody else out there that's been approved. So it is a really neat time to be a witness to this. So congratulations on all the success.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well, you've been listening and watching the latest episode of Tagged Beyond the Award. On behalf of my guest today, Alon Mozes, CEO and co-founder of Neocis and winner of the TAG Award for medical device, robotic and procedural innovation. Until next time.
On behalf of our guest today and host Justin Starbird, thank you for listening to Tagged Beyond the Award. We hope you've been inspired by the stories of innovation and leadership shared today. Don't forget to subscribe and join us for more incredible journeys behind the breakthroughs. If you or someone you know is leading the way in innovation, visit tagawards.co to learn more about how to get involved. Until next time, stay driven, keep innovating, and keep reaching for excellence.